How many games will Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals win in 2023? What's going on, Bengals fans? It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View, here to go game by game, pick by pick, on every matchup of your Bengals 2023 schedule, providing my analysis on each matchup, and of course, my record prediction for the Bengals this season. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button and let me know in the comments how many games you think the Bengals will win in 2023. Let's go. Super Bowl expectations for the Bengals in 2023, and it all kicks off in week 1 in the Battle of Ohio. And I think many Bengals fans are going to be a bit upset with how their season begins, but I have the Cleveland Browns winning the opener. The reason is, I think as Bengals fans, you probably know this, but for whatever reason, Cincinnati, Zach Taylor's Bengals, have struggled against the Browns, specifically in Cleveland. I don't know really why, but that's just been the case. They've kind of had your number despite you being the better team and the better franchise as of late. So I like the Browns at home. That doesn't mean you're going to get swept by them, though. We'll talk about that matchup a little bit later. But overall, the Bengals started slow last year, had no real impact on the team later in the year. I think that might be the case this year as well. But I just feel it's more about the matchup. The Browns will be excited to see what they are this year. Deshaun Watson coming into his full first season. A lot of reasons to like the Browns in that matchup. Week 2, I'm going to go with the Bengals. I think they pick up their first win of the season at home in their home opener in a really tough game against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I think the Baltimore Ravens are going to be a very good team, and they've played you really well, especially on defense. I think the Ravens defense played you about as well as any defense in the NFL as of late. And I do think they're going to give you a tough time, but I think your defense rises to the occasion in this matchup. And I think both these games are going to be decided by the final drive. I think Joe Burrow comes through. In week 3, it's Zach Taylor versus Sean McVay. It's a Super Bowl rematch on Monday Night Football. I think Joe Burrow and the Bengals show up big, and probably blow out the Rams. I don't think the Rams are going to be very good. I think they've got a lot of issues on their roster. They don't have much depth at all. I think Cincinnati blows them out. Week 4, you play the Tennessee Titans. This might be a sneaky one to look out for. Tennessee has played the Bengals very well. Now, obviously, the Bengals have won both the matchups, but they've been competitive and kind of lower scoring. We saw that playoff matchup a couple years ago where, honestly, the Titans were probably the better team, but the Bengals just came through with all the right clutch plays. I think Burrow got sacked like 1,000 times. And then last year, I believe the Bengals picked up a victory in Tennessee as well. So this could be a revenge game for a playoff past, but I don't think the Titans are as good as they've been. I think they've lost certainly some roster talent, but I will say their defense still is going to give you some fits. So I'm going to go with the Bengals, but I do think it's going to be a close game. Week 5, the Arizona Cardinals, worst team in the league. I'm just going to continue to say that every single video I do. They are terrible. Okay, I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be playing. The Bengals should win. Week number 6, I think if this game were in Seattle, I'd maybe have a little bit of an inclination to give the Seahawks a win there, but I'm going to go with the Bengals. Playing in Seattle is tough. Playing out of Seattle is much better. Seattle's a good team. They've got a lot of talent on offense. They've got a trio of receivers that are extremely dangerous. They can run the football. Their defense is young and promising. So that is going to be a good game, but I think the Bengals show up at home. Then they go in the bye. Then out of the bye, they play Kyle Shanahan's 49ers. These two teams played a couple years ago. The 49ers won, I think, in overtime when the Niners went to the NFC Championship. I think the Niners win in San Francisco. Their defense, I think, is really strong, and they're going to have a pass rush that can get to Joe and make him uncomfortable. On the other side of things, they have so many weapons to deal with and an incredibly creative coordinator in Kyle Shanahan. So I think the Niners win, and I also think Brock Purdy's probably healthy by this point, which helps me give them the nod. Week number 9, you play the Buffalo Bills in a rematch of the AFC divisional round. I think you beat the Bills. I think you beat them again. This one's at home. What I saw in that matchup was just not a very good matchup for the Buffalo Bills. Your defense seemed to have Josh Allen's offense figured out, flustered a little bit, and then on the other side, the Bills had no answers for your passing attack. Week number 10, the Houston Texans. Texans aren't good enough to compete with the Bengals. This would be a major upset, especially on the road for the Texans. So I'm going to take Cincinnati to win at home. Then week 11, you play the Ravens on a short week on the road. Very, very tough spot against Lamar Jackson. I'm going to take Lamar over Burrow in this matchup. I think the Ravens are going to be an exceptionally tough team. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the NFL this year. They're going to really make this division tight, I think, for Cincinnati. But again, like I've said, the Ravens defense has given you some issues. Last year in that playoff game, they didn't have Lamar. They didn't have Odell. They didn't have Zay Flowers. They didn't have all these pieces that they did add to their offense, and they still almost knocked you off. I feel like the Ravens will at least beat you in one matchup, and I do feel it will be the home game on the short week, which is just a really tough game. Kind of a bad spot by the NFL, honestly. Bad scheduling. Week number 12, the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. You should be able to win that game. Pittsburgh, I think, is a competitive team. You always got to take a Mike Tomlin team seriously, but I think you're a more talented team. You should be able to outduel them offensively. As long as you can block them up front, you should be able to handle the Pittsburgh Steelers. Week 13, the Jacksonville Jags, Monday night. A lot of people are going to pick Jacksonville in this game, but I'm actually going to pick Cincinnati. I don't quite think Jacksonville is mature enough for this spot. Yeah, it's at home, Jacksonville, all that stuff, but I think Burrow and the Bengals can dice up that Jacksonville secondary a little bit, which was 28th against the pass last year. Their pass rush still leaves something to be desired, so it's not going to dominate your offensive line. And then on the other side of things, I do think that Big Lou can bring a game plan that confuses young Trevor Lawrence. So I'm going to take the Bengals in that game on the road. The Indianapolis Colts at home, young quarterback Anthony Richardson, not the greatest team. I think the Bengals should win that game. They're just the better team. Week 15, maybe a deceptively tough game against Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, and the Vikings. This should be a shootout, but I'm going to take Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson here on a Saturday. Then week 16, you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. This is maybe one where you slip up. You're looking ahead to the Chiefs. I think the Steelers win. So that's kind of a good spot for the Steelers. Steelers are tough to beat twice in a year because they're well coached. They're always motivated in a revenge setting. And their defense is real tough. So I think Pittsburgh, one of these games, Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, they get to Burrow maybe a couple times, force a couple turnovers, kind of like last year. And then ultimately they squeak one out. But I wouldn't be surprised if you sweep them, but I'm not willing to bet on it. Week 17, you play the Chiefs, arguably the game of the year on New Year's Eve, week 17, maybe for the number 1 seed in the AFC. I've got the Bengals. I just think the matchup suggests over the last couple seasons, the Bengals have been the better team more consistently than the Chiefs. I'm going to take the Bengals. I like where they've improved in the secondary. I like what they've done to their defense. I also feel that their offensive line will be healthy at this point in the season, not like last year's playoffs. So I'm going to take the Bengals. And then in the final week of the year, I think you go into the postseason hot by beating a good Browns team that's fighting for playoff positioning. I think the Bengals win as long as they have to win. If they can decide to rest, then that's fine. But I think if they beat the Chiefs, it means they're probably going to try to play for the number 1 seed, which means that they'll beat the Browns in the final week of the season. Ultimately, I know this is crazy, I have the Bengals at 13-4. Maybe that's too much, but I have a lot of faith in this coaching staff now. I have a lot of faith in Joe Burrow and this offense. I have faith in this defense. I think this might be the team that goes to the Super Bowl out of the AFC. They're certainly in the conversation, and 13 wins would make them a very, very legit team going into the 2024 NFL playoffs. Thank you guys for watching. It's Mitch. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments your thoughts, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.